Okay, so here are the assemblies we're going to make for the Trx-4. I found the instructions are not the easiest to understand, and so I wanted to make this video to show a few key things. I printed these in two different colors. I just split the layers and then continue the print in a different color. These are for my daughter's Trx-4. So I still have the parts for all the rest, and we'll put them together and show you how it goes. Okay, our first step is to get our two sides. Then we're going to get two of these short pieces, and they're going to go right here and here. That's these top two here. And those are going to go in with a, I'm not sure the length of the screws, but it says in the directions. Okay, the next thing we're going to mount are these two blocks. They've got the holes in them. 1 and 2. Those are here. This is your track tensioner. And so you're going to put the smaller one further back, the wider one towards the front. The holes are a little bit offset. See how they're not centered? So it actually goes, that part goes down towards the bottom more. So the hole's closer to the ground. Right, the next part is to prep this. I already did it off camera, but essentially I took the threaded rod, I believe it's 65 millimeter, put it in my drill, tightened up the chuck, and then used the drill to screw it all the way in until it stopped. Be careful not to go too far. Then I took the lock nuts, put them in there and there, and you're also going to want to put a lock nut in the end of the tensioner knob. On these longer sections, you're also going to need to install this long cross brace here, and that goes right here in this hole, straight across. Next part is going to be these pieces here. When they printed for me, the bearings do not hold themselves in. They don't press in, they just kind of fall out. So it doesn't actually matter on this one. So I put a bearing in the front, put a washer on my 30 millimeter bolt, that, your other bearing, and another washer, and then that all screws right into here, back, or the front, I don't know. Basically go all the way in the lock again, and you grab there, and just want to make sure that still spins freely. I think I got it right on. If I go any tighter, it gets, let's see, yeah, then it won't spin. So you gotta get it just so that it spins freely without being wobbly. There we go. And then do the same for the other side. Also wanted to mention that it is difficult to tell the difference between these wheels, here I'll use the complete one, between these idlers here and these idlers here. Now obviously because I used a different type of bearing, but this has a smaller bearing, this is a slightly larger bearing. The smaller bearings go on the front here where the track adjustment piece is, and these ones with the larger bearing go on the other side. You can also tell because they go on this piece of plastic. And there's a slight difference in the pattern. You can see how these aren't perfectly square, whereas these guys are. Alright, now we're going to press these guys on to this plastic section. You can lay them down flat and then kind of push them in. And then Then it's on there, and we just got to add some screws. Alright, next thing we're going to put on is these guys. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on the smaller unit, there's just the 4. I did have to glue in these bearings, so I didn't feel like remaking the entire wheel. But they have to be either in there, pressed in there tight, or glued in, because otherwise they'll end up falling off. Alright, next thing we're going to do is grab one of these guys, another 65mm rod, and we're going to put a lock nut on one side. You're going to take that assembled piece, put it through there, put a 25mm spring on there, slide your rod end on next, 20mm spring, and then your other lock nut. Piece of washer first. Washer, then your lock nut on the very end. And then I clamp that side in a vise, and then put a wrench on this side to get this till it's fully engaged with the nylon locking part. Okay, once we get this guy assembled, we're going to do the same trick with the drill, 28mm rod, and this piece. We're just going to run it in until we feel slightly more resistance. There it is. Leave about that much sticking out. He doesn't show this in the pictures, and I have yet to assemble one, but I'm going to put a nut right here because I found that this rod end here, there's nothing to stop you from putting this all the way through and hitting the ball at the end. I think it's short enough that it actually wouldn't, but just be cautious of that. I screwed it in about that much. It doesn't say how far to screw it in, and I have yet to drive it, so I don't know if that's a good amount, but we will see as we go. Alright, now we're going to take that whole assembly and we're going to just kind of stick it through here, back in. There's a good picture of how it's supposed to go, but we're essentially trying to get it to sit inside of there. You'll see your 1, 2, 3 mounting holes. Goes on the inside, and it says to use 6mm screws. The problem I'm having is that my holes in these are a little bit too big for the 6mm, well, for the 3 M3 by 6 screws. They just slide in and out, so I'm trying to put, I just used 8mm, and I put some thread lock on and some nuts on the back, and we'll see how that works. Alright, last thing, now that we get this all set here, the last thing we're going to do is push in our final bearings right in the top here. These ones are nice and snug, which is good. And I believe that is our completed skid frame here. I definitely would recommend using the glue. These things aren't very easy to turn because I think I got some glue in the bearings. So I would say if they're too loose, just reprint them at 99% size or something so that the bearings press in a little tighter. Alright, so we got all our assemblies done. Now we're going to make the tracks. So I'd already made a couple of these guys. This one has 18, this one has 21. And the way they go is a double paddle, single small, double paddle, single wide. And it repeats that pattern all the way through. Now I did out the math, and you'll have to pay attention because I start with a small after the double here. And the way the math works out, because I just printed an equal number of each. Now for the other track on the other side, I'm going to have to do a double and a wide. And the same thing for the longer tracks, you got to do a double and start with a wide, and the other one double start with a skinny one. You get the idea. So you take your tracks, you put them together. I already drilled these holes out because they don't print perfectly round, at least on my printer. And I cut some carbon fiber rod so that I don't like the idea of the metal in there 'cause it's heavy. I sand down the end, and then you put it in this side. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but you put that guy through, push it all the way. You kind of got to wiggle them a bit, and eventually you'll get that down in there. Sometimes I use the counter to just kind of push against that, and you get it in there all the way in. And I use a pair of pliers or something to push it in that final little bit. And then when I'm all done, I'll take the torch, heat up all the little pins here on the end, and bend them over with a screwdriver so it melts that piece in there so it won't fall out. Alright, so here's the assembly all put together. I ended up taking the portal axle off of the truck. I think it's much easier to do that, and I would recommend that. You get your shaft extensions that go in there, and everything assembled. I ended up printing out a couple of little washers right here because this had a lot of slop side to side in it. So I just printed up some of these guys to keep it from moving, and it seems to work nicely now. Turns nice and easy. So these are essentially the nuts that come with the extensions. You've got to take them, they come like this, and I take a Dremel tool and slice it like that so you can fit a flathead screwdriver on it. Alright, we're going to do a step-by-step on how to do the next part. So I had to remove the old piece because this dimension is supposed to slide over there, but it's so, you can't get it. It's too tight. I ended up flipping it like this and then raising the entire, basically, I think it's the x-axis on the software to add about 3 or 4 millimeters in height to the whole thing, which stretched this out enough that this will actually slide over that section. The first thing you've got to do, though, is to cut. You can see these used to be ridges like this, and you have to cut 1, 2, 3, 4 of those off, and you actually have to trim this one so that it's back about, just a little bit, because essentially this piece slides over like that and it ends up hitting. So once you've got, hopefully we can print those new first. I take that out, and then I think the first thing we're going to do is to attach this to here. You got to take out these 4 bolts, cut that back. I still have to cut this piece down, and then you're going to slide that over there. Okay, it's not actually the bottom 4 bolts, it's the top 4, and this still has to, see, I got to start it on here, and you got to slide it the whole way. Alright, you can see I got it all the way up there. I actually had to put it in the vise and clamp it together because it was so tight it was pushing the holes too far apart. But once it's there, it's all bolted together. I believe that I'm never going to take these out again. I'll just buy all new hubs here and just take this entire assembly out because it's easy. It's 3 screws to get the whole thing out rather than undoing these, taking this whole bit off, and it's weakened because you've had to cut those braces. Next, we're going to take this piece off and put these longer ones on by removing that screw and replacing it with the supplied screw that comes with the extensions. All right, we've got that on there, and we're going to screw this assembly onto there. I did some testing, and the 3mm gap looks just about right so that everything lines up top. Next, we're going to slide this piece onto there and put this guy in there, and that tightens onto the screw that's down inside of there. This hole in the middle has to be drilled out, at least on my print, with a 13/64 drill bit to allow these to go through that hole. The way it printed, they are not big enough to slide through. Okay, we've got this is a 25mm with a lock nut on the other side, and you can see I got that spacer on there. We're going to put another spacer on the other side, and then the outside wheel here, gear, that's going to go on there with another nut, 25mm and lock nut, and that will complete the assembly. All right, wanted to do a test, see how it works. Turning works good. Reverse, forward. Now we gotta put the tracks on. All right, there it is, all the tracks on. Pretty cool. All right, there it is, all the tracks and the Princess Unicorn body there. We're gonna go test her out in the snow. She goes all right. That is full speed on 2S though. This is about, 3 or 4 inches of fresh powder on top of quite a bit of old snow. It's pretty good.